Here are 6 reasons why we have decided to stay and live in South Africa. Hi everyone, I'm Louisa, an Australian currently living in South Africa, and I've been here for more than 10 years now, and I wanted to share some of the things that we really love about this country. The first reason why we have decided to stay in South Africa might shock some of you and may also be controversial. But I feel like kids and teenagers in South Africa have a lot less freedom. And that also means that we as parents have more control over where our kids are going, who they are hanging out with, what they're doing in their spare time. Kids here aren't really able to just go out on their own. The country doesn't really have infrastructure. Maybe if you are situated in a bigger city like Cape Town, where there might be a bit more public transport, or you're able to actually walk from one point to another, you would be able to do this. But in most cities and towns, kids aren't really just able to go and ride their bike to the movies, for instance, with their friends, or walk to the mall after school and hang out with their friends until they need to come home. I kind of feel like this allows us as parents to have a little bit more control over what our children are doing. I grew up in Australia and moved when I was 18 years old, and I feel like I had so much freedom as a kid. And on the one hand, it can look like such a positive thing, but I feel like it also stops families from spending as much time together because your children have so much freedom to just do whatever they want that when they're able to, they're out with their friends, they're riding bikes to the beach or going out to the movies or going out for food. And I feel like it was like a really big sort of like family disruption, which doesn't really make sense because you kind of want your kids to have a lot of freedom and independence and to be able to go do things on their own. Personally, from my experience, I feel like I could have benefited from having less of that freedom. I do think that it made me more independent, and I guess that's a good thing, but I think I got too much independence from a really young age, and I think especially my teenage years, mom and dad don't watch this. I think I got into like more trouble than I probably should have gotten into, doing things I probably shouldn't have been allowed to do. Um, I'm not going to go into detail, but that is definitely a deterrent for us on moving back to Australia, and one of the positives that we find in South Africa. You can maybe tell me in the comments below if you think that's a positive thing or a negative thing. The second point is that I feel like South African children are raised to have really good manners. For instance, if you as a child are addressing somebody who's older than you, you would address them by using sir or ma'am. Whereas in Australia, that's not really a thing that I ever grew up with. It was very foreign when I moved here. It felt so strange to say that to anyone, and now I just feel like that is the respectful thing to do. In Afrikaans, you would say tannie or oom, and just a lot of children are just raised to have really good manners. You make eye contact when you speak to people, you shake someone's hand. Also, if somebody who's older than you or somebody who's an acquaintance of yours walks into a room, you're taught to stand up, say hello, greet them. And I just feel like kids are raised a lot more respectfully. And I don't mean that in a horrible way. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I wasn't raised like that, and it felt like it was really foreign to me when I first moved here. It was something that took me a long time to actually get used to. But now I think it's a really, really awesome thing. And I see that it carries through even from younger children to teenagers. I mean, there are teenagers holding doors open for people. Another thing is that if you are a boy, you are kind of taught to be a little bit more respectful towards girls and towards women, holding the door open for them, maybe helping them carry their bags, maybe not using like very inappropriate language around females, and just like the overall atmosphere of teens, boys, men, for me personally, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but it just feels a lot more respectful towards women, and I feel like just a lot more chivalrous, if that's a word. And I really like that, and that's the way that we want to raise our son. We want him to grow up in that sort of environment and understand that that is the norm, to treat girls with respect, and also for our daughter to, I don't know, just grow up like that. I think it's really nice. It's something that drew me close to my husband now, because when I met him, we actually met in Australia, and I was like, why does this boy have such good manners? Why is he so kind? Like, why is he so respectful towards my parents and towards other people? And I'm not saying Australians aren't respectful. It's just a different culture. It's a different way of doing things. It's just maybe not as formal, but to me, I really like that about South Africa. The third point is just the sense of community in South Africa. South Africans are very community driven. If you just look at the way that they love their sport, rugby for instance, meeting up with friends and family for braais on weekends, that is just something that like brings people together around a really good meal, watching sport, or going to a show or a concert, or just being together. I found that people here do a lot more in their homes with one another, inviting people over for dinners. Maybe it was just my family that didn't do that much. We didn't really host people very often. But when I came to South Africa, it was such a strange thing for me because I wasn't used to constantly inviting people over to our houses and getting everything together to make a really nice braai. If you don't know what a braai is, it's basically like the South African version of a barbecue, but it's like always open fire. I don't know how to explain it. Like in Australia, a barbecue would be probably with a gas barbecue. And in South Africa, if you were to use like a gas braai, it wouldn't really give you the same flavors, the same feel. I'm not sure if you're South African watching this. Are you appalled at people who use like gas braais? I don't know. But usually it's over an open fire and it just like brings people together. The food that they share, the things that they talk about. Also, watching rugby is like a huge thing. You've got to have your like green and yellow shirt, and everyone gets together, and it's like everyone supports each other. And one thing that I have actually noticed recently after traveling last year was that whenever you meet South Africans, they are just so excited to hear that you're South African, and they're willing and open to chat about anything, whether it comes to sport or where you come from or where you're going or what you do in life. I just feel like South Africans are very eager to get to know one another, to be based in a community. You can meet another South African on the other side of the world and you can have almost nothing in common, and yet they will be so welcoming to you and just like so loving, and you'll have such a good connection even if you've never met them before and live completely different lives. I don't entirely know how to explain it, and I'm sure Australia has pieces of that, but I just feel like in South Africa, the community base is just such a big part of your life. Um, and we really like that here. Before I get onto point number 4, I wanted to say that there will be a second part to this video. So if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit the little bell icon so that you don't miss the next video. Okay, so point number 4 is work ethic. And I don't know if this is sort of a worldwide known thing about South Africans, but South Africans have a very strong work ethic. Nothing is too hard for a South African. This is something that's really appealing to us as parents because we really want our children to know that it's important to work for what you want. Things are not just going to be handed to you. You have to put the effort in, and to also not give up when it feels like it's too tough. You push through, and I don't know, I just found that South Africans are really, really hardworking. And I guess that's why other countries are often looking for South African employees, because they are known to work so hard. This actually leads me into point number 5, which is the resilience of South Africans. The South Africans as a country, as a people, are so resilient. This country has been through so much. And I feel like it's sort of ingrained in the people of this country. They're just like never giving up, always going at it, working really hard. And I feel like as a culture, people are just very persistent. And I'm sure this is also seen in other countries. I don't have a lot of points of reference to this, but, and I'm sure it's changing as like the generations are also changing, but I don't know, my husband always says, especially the people that he works with and the people that we meet and we're surrounded by, just like such resilient people. They can go through so much, still have a smile on their face, still push forward, still work really hard. And that is something that we really want for ourselves and for our children as well. Something that is really important to us as a Christian family is that the base religion in South Africa is Christianity. If I'm not mistaken, I have to actually Google it and see, maybe I can insert it here somewhere. But my points of reference for understanding this aren't super broad. So because I grew up in Australia, I kind of have that idea. And my mom, oh, listen to the birds. My mom is German, so I've also got ties to Germany. We've been back and forth between the two countries. And Australia, from my opinion, is not a particularly Christian country. There are a lot of different cultures, a lot of different religions and faiths and beliefs. And as a Christian family, it's not that we don't think we could hold our faith up strong in a different country, but because South Africa is so Christian based, we just find that it's just a really nice feeling to be surrounded by people who have the same beliefs as you. There are lots of churches, and they're big churches, and a lot of people are involved in their church community. And it's just really nice to have something beyond just us to work towards and to have the community that has the same belief as us. And it's really nice to see that our children just have that ingrained in them as just their everyday life. That is the norm. That's what we do as Christians. We go to church, we have our things that we do for church, and just understanding that God is at the center of everything that we do and everywhere we go. And I find that most children, if I'm not mistaken, just have that same belief that God is real and can connect with one another on that like perspective, if that makes sense. There are also a lot of Christian-based schools. So the school that we chose for our children is Christian-based, which means a lot of their curriculum involves, I don't know, just following Jesus and teaching about that. And their teachers, when they're going through difficulties, are able to explain things from a Christian perspective often. Of course, they include and allow all different cultures and religions to join the school, but at the base of it, it is a Christian school. And I feel like even though I went to a Christian school in high school, it was not really that I actually knew anyone that was Christian. So I went to a Christian school, we sang the songs, we had assembly on a Wednesday, we'd do scripture, we'd say a prayer, we'd sing Christian songs, but it wasn't that anyone was actually believing in the teachings that were being taught, and it definitely wasn't something that I believed in at that point. If you want to hear my Christian testimony, I'll put it up the top and you can go check it out after this video, and I'll link it down below in the description. But for us, that is a really important thing, and one of the reasons why we have decided to actually stay in South Africa. When I was pregnant with our second child, we were actually stuck in Australia. I was trying to renew my visa, and it was a whole thing. And we went the public hospital route for like all of our appointments and for the birth and all of that. And we were given midwives after the birth to check up on us and see how everything was going with baby, with mom. And we had one nurse who came past who was actually from South Africa, and she'd been to the town in where we live, which was so cool. And she actually said that she is the only Christian in her whole workspace. And it just makes it really difficult for her to relate to those people around them. I think if you were to go up to someone and tell them, you know, they're going through something difficult and you want to pray for them, or you've got them in your prayers, it would just be such a bizarre thing to say to someone. And I think people might not take you very seriously, or might just think like this person's a little bit crazy. But it's just a nice thing for us to be able to have that here. And yeah, it was a huge factor into the reasons why we haven't actually left South Africa yet. I have so many other things that I wish I could talk about and I want to talk about, but this video will get too long, so I will make a part 2. Let me know in the comments if there's anything specific that you'd like to know about life in South Africa, and I'll see if I can include it in the next video. I have noticed that a lot of people that watch my videos are not subscribed to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really makes a huge difference to my channel. So please hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. If you want to see future videos about life in South Africa, go ahead also and watch some of my other videos, which I will link down below, and then you can go give them a watch if you're interested in what life is like living in South Africa. I hope you are having an awesome start to the year. I wish you all the best. Thank you for watching.